Welcome to Making a Smarter Agent, a podcast for people who sell things for a living. Sales, the easiest job to get and yet the hardest one to succeed at. Each week, I take a deep dive into the methods used by the winners in sales, the people who seem to make selling look easy.
And welcome now. We are back with Making a Smarter Agent. I have the pleasure, the absolute pleasure of getting someone who I've looked up to for years. Dottie Herman, CEO of Douglas Elliman, is on the line with me. Dottie, how are you?
I'm good. I'm actually in Florida, and even though it's not warm, it's better than New York, which is freezing and raining right now.
Good. I want to get into your business and your radio show and Douglas Elliman and all that, but let's get started. How did you get started in real estate? Let's back up here. I want to, dissect this one piece at a time.
It's not that I grew up and wanted to be a real estate agent. I went to school to become a teacher, and I graduated, and I thought, well, I really have to make a lot of money, and it was hard getting a job then, and I just said, well, in the interim, I'll get my Series 7, and I'll become a stockbroker. And I enrolled at Adelphi University for a program that was fairly new, which was a CFP, Certified Financial Planner. And I found that, and I would go, I would go to class, and everybody that was there was an attorney or a CPA. And here I was in real estate. And so I said to the professor, listen, I really don't have this kind of knowledge. And he said to me, well, come and take my class twice. And I did. I took the same class twice. And I had to go through about, I think, 14 different, full class sessions of, it took me a couple of years. And I got certified as a CFP. And as a certified financial planner, what you really do is you look at somebody's life, and then you work with a CPA, you work with an estate attorney, you work with a real estate person, and you put it all together for them. But as the person who puts the financial plan together, you do what your expertise are, and you work with others, and then you put a whole package together. And at that point in my life, I thought, hey, real estate is a big part of people's financial plan. It's a huge part of their portfolio. And I started to sell real estate just like that. Not that I didn't, it's of course a place to live and love, but, what's your risk tolerance? Do you think your wife will still be working in 5 years when you look at payments? And it's not how much the bank will give you, it's how much you're comfortable in spending. And I found that was, I found that really was very helpful to people to kind of look at it that way. Of course, I don't think anyone's Houdini and can sell something to somebody that they don't love, but also they had to look at the package. Were they going to be moving in, 5 or 6 years? Do they need to live close to their mother? So that's how I really started. And I worked for Merrill Lynch. So they said to me, Dottie, you're a diamond in the rough. And they worked with me. I flew out to California. I flew out and I saw people do things all over the country. And I would say to them, well, that might work, but I don't think it would work here. And of course, that's just not true necessarily. I learned real estate in a more global way. And I think it was probably one of the biggest moments in my life. It was a great company to work for, and I was horrified when they decided to sell it.
They sold it to?
Well, this was in the 80s, okay, like the late 80s, I think. And so then they said, now Merrill Lynch in those days rules. I mean, they were it. And they're selling it. Now it's on the market. It's all over the papers. And of course, what happens when you're a real estate company that you work for? They had offices all over the country. It was a national company. It wasn't a franchise. And what happens when you have, well, then of course you have all the raiders of other companies trying to get people to leave. So they said, Dottie, we want you to stay, and I was in the Northeast region. We want you to stay and help keep this company together until we find a buyer because we've sold it to Prudential, and Prudential said, we don't believe in national companies because Merrill was a national real estate company. We think business is very local, and therefore we don't want to own a national company. We want to franchise it. So my job was now to keep my group together in the Northeast until they found a buyer. And then when they found a buyer, of course, I'd be out of a job. Okay.
Love that,
So
working yourself out.
What bad luck. But in any event, I always do the best job I can. And I kept it together. And then one day, I really mean it, I was about 29 years old. I had no money. And this brand new agent, who was brand new, said to me, Dottie, because there were like ads, don't stay on the sinking ship. You know, they had big things all over the place.
Sure.
He said, why don't you buy? And I said, well, I have no money. They said, but what's the difference? Just say that you do. And again, I was about 29, and
if I could just interject, that sounds very 1980s, by the way. Yeah, screw it. Just tell me I have the money anyway.
Yeah.
If you imagine the 80s.
Well, everyone says that, but really, I don't believe that, and I'll tell you why. And I don't want to take too much of your time, but it's just a great story, and it shows
it's a great
you
story.
The possibility. So I said, well, that sounds like a good idea. And again, if you ask me that question now, I don't think I would answer it the same way. But then I was so young, I didn't think about it. So a lot of the women had husbands that were like big shots or accountants, and they all came together. And I stood in front of the company, and I was on Long Island. We had like 38 offices, and we had about 1,800 salespeople. And I stood in front of them, being the youngest of all of them. I said, listen, I'm buying the company. I said, and so stick together, stick with me, because together we're strong. Now, in everyone's minds, they knew I didn't really have the money, but they wanted to stick together. They wanted to stay one. So they stuck with me, and they sent their husbands in, and I don't want to be sexist, but at the time they had their husbands come in and help me do business plans. And I wrote a letter to Prudential. I have venture capital money, and I'm ready to have you come and offer me to buy Long Island, because we had about 38 offices. And they had come up with some formula from the Wharton studies on how to evaluate companies across the country. And so by the time they got to me, it was almost 9 months later. And they had, sold a lot of the companies on the West Coast already. And when they got to me, I sat and I listened to them. And when it was all said and done, I had to tell them the truth, that I really didn't have money. And by the way, I did call banks. I did try. I called banks. They hung up in my face. And then they said, we wouldn't even lend you the money to buy one office, let alone a company. And then in those days, a lot of people had like their name on their real estate, like they had Joe Blow's real estate company. I called them all these rich guys that had big egos. I said, listen, you can buy a real estate company and have your name all over it. Well, some of them expressed interest, but nothing panned out. So now at the meeting with Prudential, I listen to them. I tell them how much I know I can do for this company, and how much I can bring it to another level, and how much it would help them, because they're a franchise. So the more money we make, the more money they're going to make. And I said, but there's one thing. I don't have the money. Why don't you lend it to me? And they looked at me and they said, no way, we cannot do that. I said, well,
how much were they seeking, Dottie, at the time?
I borrowed probably, now we're going back to the 80s, and I probably borrowed, I think I borrowed 11 point something million, and then I borrowed 2.7 in working capital.
Okay.
And, well, I kept on at them, and I guess there was a little luck in the sense that there was no real buyers for Long Island at the time. They didn't have a line of people. And so eventually they sold it to me. No money down, no personal guarantees because I didn't have anything to guarantee. As the working capital really wasn't enough. And I said, but that's not enough. And they said, well, that's all we can lend you. And to make a long story short, a year later, because the company was evaluated on the last 5 prior years of real estate, which happened to have been good years, but the going forward years were bad, and we went into some kind of a recession. So then I couldn't pay the money back. And they were writing me letters saying, you're in default, you're in default, you're in default. And I was like freaking out. And I had never been to Newark, New Jersey in my life. So I got a card and a driver, go to Newark where they are. That's where Prudential is stationed. Their head office was there. I go and see a million bankers, and I am hysterical crying. I was like, you cannot take my company from me. You cannot do it. And I don't know that they really knew how to deal with an hysterical woman. And I'm being honest about it.
It sounds honest.
Like, calm down. And to make a long story short, they forgave 70% of my loan.
Wow.
I have the real estate company that I'm funded. I own it. I'm a franchise of Prudential. Okay. And I had offices in Long Island and out east in the Hamptons. And I think I had a couple of Queens. But I had loans out everywhere. It was all my money, and I wasn't rich or anything. I had loans. I used to have to call the agent and say, don't cash your checks yet.
Oh, my God.
So in any event, I said, I need capital. I knew that to compete with public companies that have tons of money, I had mortgaged everything I had. And I knew I wouldn't be able to compete with them. So I needed to get somebody to come in. And I was talking to my attorney about it. And he introduced me to a couple of people, one of which was Howard Lorber.
Got it.
And Howard Lorber, I was nobody then, and I had a nice company in Long Island. It was a big company for Long Island, but he just looked. I said, listen, I promise you, if you just help me out, I'll pay you back all this money. And to make a long story short, he believed in me, and it wasn't a big deal to him. He had a lot of money, and it wasn't a big deal. He did it, and I would report to him once a month. And then, as soon as I made the deal with Howard, maybe a year later, it was Sendent then, but it's now Reality. They were trying to buy my company, and they offered me $30 million.
Wow.
And I said, how? And I was now maybe 40, not even. And I said, Howard, please, because now he could have gotten his money and departed, okay, and made a nice profit and left. I said, Howard, I don't want to sell this company. I want to open in Manhattan. And he looked at me, and you could ask him this. He looked at me and he said, you know what? I won't say the word he used, but he said, you're an idiot. You should take the money. He said, but I'm rich already. Doesn't mean anything to me. If you really want to do it and not sell the company, then I'll go along with you. And he did. He stayed with me, and we started cold calling companies in Manhattan, and Howard called on a company Insignia, which was not openly on the market, but the guy said his name was Andrew Farkas. He said, look, I'll give you, if you get $72 million, I'll sell you the company. And I called up Prudential, and I said, I can buy a company in Manhattan. It's the number one company in Manhattan. You just have to lend me $72 million.
I'm sure they love that.
They loved me. I mean, I always was a team player. I had really paid back most of the money that I borrowed from them initially. I brought Howard into the loop, and actually Howard had to lend me a second from Vector at $11 million because I really needed 83. But I convinced bankers to lend us that $72 million after 9/11. And if those of you who were in New York after 9/11, we were expecting a second terrorist attack. We were on orange alert, red alert, evacuating buildings. And then there was the anthrax. And to get someone to lend you that kind of money when New York was supposed to be hit again was almost impossible.
Sure.
I don't care who you are.
I remember it well. I remember it well. I remember
But
it well.
they actually did it.
So
They actually did it.
They actually did it. You got the money. You were the one to convince Howard. I'm sure he's probably
he was like
that he didn't.
He thought I was crazy.
Otherwise. Yeah.
He thought I was crazy, and at the time, he just thought, you don't have any money. You should take this money and run with it. But when I said for him, it would have been, because he wasn't really involved in the business then. He was always a real estate junkie. He always loved real estate. But he wasn't in the city. He was on Long Island too. So he said, listen, I think you're crazy, but if you want to do it, I won't stop you. And then he helped me, and we called companies. We went to visit companies. And we got Andrew Farkas to tell us it wasn't for sale, but he said, if you get this money, I'll sell you the company. And then I went back to Prudential, and I said, I can get this company. But remember the circumstances. For them, I don't care what year it was. It's not because it's just almost an impossible thing under the circumstances that we were just hit by a terrorist attack, and we were expecting a second one. So for someone to lend you the money to build a company in Manhattan when we're expecting another terrorist attack is kind of really, when I look at the story, I can't even believe it. But they did. And let me just say this. It taught me a very big lesson in life.
Okay.
It taught me never be afraid to fail. Because there was no one that believed it was going to happen. And, And people say to me now, well, Dottie, didn't you feel like you'd be an idiot if everything you did and you stood in front and told everyone you were going to buy a company and then it didn't happen? I said, no.
I'm so glad you said that. I set a goal. Could I interject something that I did?
Oh, I'd love that.
Much smaller. I said to everyone, and the psychologists call this conversationally committing. In other words, you're putting your ass on the line. The same way when you gave that example, when somebody gives an example of Weight Watchers, they go in and they weigh themselves and you don't want to fail. You're committing to something. I said to everyone, I'm going to do 50 deals in 2019. I wound up doing 22. But here's the thing. I did 65% better in revenue than I did the previous year. That's A. And B, had I not set such a lofty goal, had I not stretched myself, and look, you can look at it on either way. I certainly failed to attain the goal that was set, and albeit it's much, much smaller than this phenomenal achievement of yours. But I love hearing that from successful people.
Well,
I just think,
no, but Edmund, you're like me. It's not, first of all, it's not about the size of the achievement, and I'm like you. I look at myself, and I say to myself, am I better than I was a month ago or 2 months ago?
Sure.
I might not be where I want to be, but am I heading in the right direction? And if I'm heading in the right direction, I'm okay. And I don't look at failure that way. I look at the people, I say, you know what? The only people that never failed are the people that never tried anything, so they never failed.
Anything. Yeah, the most boring people ever. Who wants to be with them?
And nobody. And I don't care what profession you're in. If you're an actor or an actress. Look at all the actors and actresses they said would never make it. And look at all the rejection they went through. It's a matter of believing in it. And you know what? In our business, the real difficult part is it's easy to get up and go to the office and work like crazy when everything is going right. But when everything is going the wrong way and that the 2 deals you had fell apart, the listing you promised, they gave it to somebody else. It's very easy to go into a slump and just kind of feel bad for yourself when you get in a slump. And what I find most people do is they get high and then things don't go great. Then they go into the slump. Then they get high again. And so their career is kind of up and down like hills. What I've learned is, and don't get me wrong, I've cried many a day. And I certainly have made many mistakes. But here's what I do. I get out of the office. I go cry and feel sorry for myself. I let it all out. I let a couple of days pass, and I get back into it. And if you look at successful people, anybody you know in real estate, You don't hear them walking around saying, I lost this deal, I lost that deal, I lost this deal, when those people have more deals than anyone. So they had to lose more. They don't get stuck talking about it. I mean, it's not that they don't lose a lot, okay? So I think it's a matter of kind of really programming your mind that this is, and it's really a hard business, and it's hard because cash flow, kind of doesn't come evenly. But you've got to kind of stick to it, and you brush yourself off when you get down the dumps. I'm a believer of going to a lot of different things. I've always been involved in learning and growing, in reading, and I think, and I always try to remember something someone told me a long time ago. Well,
and that is?
Go get somebody, and there's always somebody that's doing better than you. Okay, and learn from them. And I learn from people in completely other businesses too. It's not only real estate because it's business. So I just think it's also, a mindset. You have to have a mind. It's not an easy. It's a, when you're getting a salary every week, but in our business, hey, I mean, if you have a slump, I mean, you could be going through cash flow problems. So, but I do think that there's not many professions that have the opportunity that we have, but you also have to like it.
Yeah, so let me do this, and there's a man, you opened up a door here. If it wasn't real estate for Dottie Herman, what would it have been?
I would tell you that if I wasn't in real estate, I would have liked to have been an actress. You know why? I think in real estate, we're all on stage. And
Always.
I'm very cognizant. Like, you can't, like I would say to somebody, they would come and say, well, my husband left me, my child is doing this happened, all the excuses. And I would say, don't worry, it'll be okay, you'll get past it. And then I realized, wait a second, I have some of those problems, but you have to go on. If you think about it, you're talking to your close friends. You're saying, I had a bad year, I'm down the dumps, I didn't have deals. Well, do you think those friends are going to tell their friends to use you?
Never. No, there has to be that winning way. Nobody.
So you're kind of on stage, and again, if those who know me well know I'm a straight shooter, so I don't talk a lot of bluff. Okay, but I'm very cognizant. I mean, look at me as the CEO of the company. If I would come in and say, "Oh my God, things are falling apart," and believe me, there were days I wasn't sure I could pay. Okay, but I would say I'm going to get through this. And then when we went through the recession, remember we went in, I guess it was when the banks were folding and people were trying to get their money out. It was in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was freaking out. And I said, listen, we always have to have a plan B. If nobody has houses, we'll sell tents. I mean, it was kind of humorous. But people have to believe in you. And it doesn't mean that I'm a magician or that you have to be, because you're not. But the truth is you have to believe in you. I believe in you so much. That's why I'm on here, because I think that you really care and you really want to help other people get to another level. And I have to tell you, whether people believe this or not, I never looked at the money. Not that I didn't need it, but it was never my goal to be the richest person in the world or anything like that. And never in my wildest dreams did I really ever think I would get where I got. I just was focused on doing the best that I could. And
so,
I had
but aside from that, now good, because you hit on something that I really wanted to ask. Aside, it wasn't just the money, and certainly the money's very nice. So, everyone's going to be very.
Of course, I like
stuff.
money. Don't get me wrong.
I like stuff. I mean,
yes,
that was. If you saw the movie The Jerk with Steve Martin, Bernadette Peters was crying. She said, "It's not losing all the money; it's losing all the stuff," and it was a hilarious line. But
true.
What about the accolades? What about the most powerful woman in real estate in America? I mean, doesn't that make you? Don't you wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, and say, "Damn, look at you! You did that." Isn't that a great thing?
Well, I kind of really never thought about it. I mean, all of a sudden, one time, like maybe 7 years ago, I was on Forbes magazine on the cover. It said like one of the richest self-made women. Now I really wasn't. It was the company. But I mean, and I'm walking around at an airport and I see my pictures all over Forbes, and I saw it all over New York Magazine. I never really took it to my head. I never, and I still don't. I think, first of all, things, some people are up and then they're down, and life is ups and downs, and it's how you navigate through them.
Sure.
So but my reputation was important, and I truly, truly, truly wanted to help grow people. But to do that, I was never somebody who said, do what I say, but I don't do it. Okay? I read, I went to seminars, I grew. I think too many people, and I understand why, but too many people get stuck in today and they don't look at growing mentally. And when I worked for Merrill Lynch, one of my mentors said to me, Dottie, how much do you want to make this year? And I said, I was managing a bunch of offices. I said, what do you need? What number do you need me to tell you? For their numbers. And he said to me, Dottie, you earn what you think. So if you think like somebody who makes 100,000, that's what you'll earn. If you think like somebody who makes 100, so I want you to make sure that you also associate with people that are levels ahead of you, because it's all starts with thinking.
Yeah.
If you never come to work and you never do anything, well, then there's no hope. And he told me something else that I would love to share with you, and I'm taking up this conversation, and I don't mean to, but I just passionate about this.
I love it. It's perfect.
Okay, and I'm really sorry because I don't want to do that.
No, it's pearls of wisdom. Are you kidding me? This is. If I stopped
we had a consultant when I was at Merrill Lynch, and I never forgot what he said. He said people fail for 3 reasons. One, they don't want to do it. Now, if someone doesn't want to do it, there's no hope in even trying to help them. They don't want to.
Sure.
2, someone doesn't know how to do the job. Now, if that's the case, then if you're their manager or their mentor, or if they have no one, then they have to find somebody to help them learn how to do the job. And I do believe that in real estate, besides for knowing real estate, which you really have to know how to sell, take a course or 2 on selling. And number 3, what they think the job is and what you think the job is are 2 different things. So I think that when you talk to people and you say, if you were to go around a room, Edmund, and ask all the group that you talk to and speak with weekly, how many of you want to make more money? What would their answer be? Okay.
I think most people would say, I'd like to make more money. I don't know if they're prepared to do what it takes, unless I'm reading the question wrong.
No. I mean, listen, there's no right or wrong to answers. But truthfully, I don't think there's too many people that would say, no, I don't want to make more money.
Sure.
And I also learned from my mentors that staying the same, you can't keep on staying the same, because that eventually means you go backwards, even though our business has ups and downs. What the question is, are you willing to do what it takes to make more money? And then you have to start. And I would say, okay, so you're willing to, like in my day, Saturday and Sundays, a lot of the times the women would come during the week and the men came on the weekends. Are you willing to give up a lot of weekends? Well, I really can't. Are you willing to try? Like, I would give people 10 things to do. And I'd say, do these things, and then you can leave the office if you want, but you cannot leave before you do these 10 things. Are you willing to do what it takes? I mean, people say they want to, but you've got to be willing to do what it takes. And when you have an obstacle, like you said, or when you didn't reach quite where you thought you'd reach, you can't get stuck there. You've got to figure out a way around it. And, I've listened to 1 million speakers and gone to 1 million seminars. And some of them, I get something out of all of them. But what I do is I listen to them all, and then I take what's me. Like, could I sell like Howard Lorber? Never. I'm not him. It wouldn't work for me. At the same token, He couldn't. You have to take your personality and your strengths and weaknesses, and you've kind of got to build a plan around that. I have a sign that says, "Success is failure turned inside out."
Love
There's
that.
no one that hasn't failed, and they made and I love what you said, because you learned skills from all the other things you did, and it brought you to where you are today.
Sure.
You know, you can't be afraid to fail. But I do try to build goals that are realistic. Like somebody said to me, like, okay, you made $50,000 or $100,000. If your goal is to make $1 million next year, I think that's kind of an unrealistic goal. And so my philosophy is, because I like people to feel good and feel like they won. So if you make something that, take baby steps. Like you can't change 15 million habits of yourself in one day, in 1 year. So I work on like one or two things that I want to make.
So hold on. So I shouldn't quit smoking, lose weight, and stop biting my nails. I don't do any of those things, by the way. But you're saying you shouldn't change.
Well,
too
you
many
can't.
habits.
It's hard to do them all at once. How do you make money? The only time you make money is, you're out there meeting people. Then people say, well, oh, Dottie, give me money for this organization because, I'm in it. And I said, well, if you think putting a business card for $100 in their little book is going to get you business, you're wrong. You have to be involved. And, I opened up in the Hamptons, brand new, and they had no MLS there, and they boycotted me. And one day I'll give you a story that New York Magazine came out, and it said the broker from another planet. And so they came to me they did very polite, and they said to me, listen, nobody makes it in the Hamptons. We have no MLS, and we're the good old boys. Now, I started in the Hamptons probably 85, 90, around there. And they said, we're not giving you any listings. Now I'm in the Hamptons. I have no listings, and nobody's co-broking listings because there's no MLS, and there still is not. And so where am I supposed to get listings, and how am I supposed to recruit anybody? Like, oh, by the way, come to my company. We have no listings, and by the way, not only that we have no listings, nobody will co-broke to us.
Wow.
So what I did, I called up all these builders. I said, listen, I'll put you on my website. You don't have to list with me. And then I put a big story, like a big thing in the papers in the Hamptons, and I wrote, now open for business, no signature necessary. Now I told everyone, please don't get used to this. But I got out there, and I had 1 million open listings. I put them all in those, and they had no MLS, so you could put open listings. And I just put, and then I said to everybody, because I couldn't get anyone new, so I went to anyone experienced. I went to all the schools. I said, just anybody. And they would say, would you hire me? I'm like, listen, I'll never tell anybody that I hired you without even knowing who you are, but just come. And we built a company in the Hamptons on all brand new people, all right? And truthfully, okay, it was really about the desire to win, okay, the perseverance. We put signs all over the place. The police would take them down, and we'd go back and put them up. And yes, and I would have my other offices on Long Island come to the open houses out in the Hamptons. They would drive for me an hour just so I looked like I had a lot of people working for me. Mm-hmm. And then I'll never forget, this is a great story. The brokers that work for other companies kind of felt bad for me because
why is that?
They told me, oh, Dottie, there's a guy, his name is Barry. He's getting fired from Cook Pony. He's on vacation. He doesn't know it yet. So I said, give me his number. And I called him, and I said, Barry, I don't know if you know that you're fired yet, but you will know soon. You are welcome at my company.
Wow.
And I just really built it. I built it. And so this magazine, New York Magazine, wrote a story, The Broker from Another Planet, and the brokers in the Hamptons wrote, well, the people that go to Dottie they shop at the Gap. And by the way, they don't wear green corduroy pants with pink whales. And by the way, they can't get into the Maidstone.
Wow.
And I took a picture. And again, in the Hamptons at that time, it was very kind of, stiff, and it was all who you knew. I had an SL. I put it on the beach. I had a suit on. I sat on the trunk of my car.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote, hey, we are going to own the Hamptons. And truthfully, and I had all brand new people. So it wasn't that I had all these experienced people. But let me tell you, that desire to win, that desire to make it, that desire to me, I will take a new person any day of the week who really wants it. Sure. Over somebody who could, who is okay, but they're not passionate about it. So I think what you do is great. And I think the time that you give those people, I mean, I really respect you so much for that. And to give back. And like I told you, I am yours whenever you need me, because I really believe that what you're doing and giving back, and you have a reputation, and that's all we have. And when I bought Douglas Elliman, I don't know that I made the mistake. I said to everyone, they go, what are your credentials? You're from Long Island, like you might as well be in a trailer park. Okay, and I said, well, there's a store or two that, they go, well, how come you dress nice? I said, well, if you look, there's a store. But anyhow, I said to them, besides for giving me a shot, I said, I've mortgaged everything I have for this. And the old CEO, that was the CEO before me, afterwards said, you're an idiot. Now you told them that you don't have any money, they're really going to leave. Well, let me tell you something. I had no breakage, not one person left. And I told them, I need you. I don't know everything about the city. I know and together, and I really mean this, I could have never done it without the help of everybody in the company. And that's really what it was all about. And I built
some of which are still with the company.
There are people that have been in the company before me that are still here.
Sure. Yeah.
And you know what? Really, there was a woman that was 90 years old that said, you're lucky my friends are all dying. Okay. And she was married to a judge, or they had a law school. She would give me, and they would introduce me to players in the city, because I have to tell you, it was a great team effort. And there's a lot of people, for those people that struggle, there's a lot of people that will help. You just have to find them.
You're just incredible. Last few moments here. I mean, we've had such a great time here. I want to just talk about Ion Real Estate.
Okay.
You've been generous on my podcast here, and I want to, put this out there and certainly put it out on social media. It's a radio show. It's a podcast. Tell us about Ion.
It's a radio show, but you can get it online. You can stream it. And what it is, I've been doing it 12 or 13 years now. And I have myself, I have Ace, who's our financial expert. And by the way, he's a whiz. I recruited him. It took me 2 years, but I finally got him. And I have an attorney, a real estate attorney. And we talk about everything real estate. And people call in. And I don't have the waves. So I'm doing it from Florida this week because I'm here. And I have all my equipment set up. Truthfully, you just have to go, and you can stream it and get it at any time. And people call in, or they email or text questions. And it's about everything. It's about bad neighbors. It's about financing. It's about, am I ready to buy a home? It's sellers call in, on what they should do, or what happens if their home isn't selling. People call in for everything. And I've tried to make it a community. And I say, if you have a question, then other people have the same question. I had a guy, he called me from London, and I said, how did you find me? And he found me, and so I said, wow, like, I was really impressed. Okay, but this was a smart guy. I'm like, you called me from London. So I said, look, do you ever come to New York? And he said, yes. And I said, well, then let me know and you'll come on my show, in which he did. And I said, he gave us an overview of London. And then after I took him for coffee, and you know what he told me? Now, this was brilliant. He said, the real reason I went on your show, even though I'm in real estate, is I met a girl from New Jersey. And we were in love, and she wants me to move to New York. He said, and I knew if I sent you an application, you'd never even look at it. So I figured call your show. Now, was that
pretty
brilliant?
clever? Yeah, very clever.
And was that thinking out of the box?
But Dottie, look, this has been a blast. I really wish we had more time, and I hope to have you back to be able to.
Thank you. And I really want to say that I think you're terrific. I respect everything you do, and I'm 100% behind you and all the people that follow you, because that's so smart to build a community and support each other.
Making a Smarter Agent would like to thank its two sponsors. The first is Organized New York Palm Beach, which you could see on Instagram at the handle Organized Palm Beach. Let's face it, organization stinks. It's tough. Organized New York Palm Beach is the premier organizing company that operates between New York and Palm Beach County, Florida. Go check them out on Instagram at Organized Palm Beach. Also, Rain Nation. That's the Real Estate Information Group Network. Think of it as group therapy for realtors. And you know what? We need it. It's part think tank, it's part coaching, it's all opportunity. Rain Nation, that's REIGNATION. You can find it on Facebook.